Hey, what's up? My name is JS Method, and today I want to talk about should you one-trick champions or should you try to develop a large champ pool, maybe even a champ ocean in League of Legends? So in this video, I'm going to talk about kind of how I conceptualize LoL knowledge. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each one, and then I'm going to offer my advice and my hypothesis at the end. So let's go ahead and hop into this. So I like to visualize League knowledge in kind of in like a pie graph, right? So you can visualize this pie is all of the things you need to know about League and how to execute on it at a good enough level to this is League, right? So what one tricking does is it's going to give you a very narrow perspective. A very narrow perspective, but your perspective is going to cut really, really deep. Your piece of the pie, your perspective is going to be very narrow because you only play one thing in one role, and usually you only build a certain amount of items, you only do this and this. But you're going to be very, very, very good at it. So your knowledge is going to cut really, really deep on that narrow slice of pie. Right now, what building a champion pool does and kind of playing more champions is it's going to take away from the time that you can cut deeper into the pie. You're going to be able to cover more of the pie. It's going to be a lot more generalized, right? So the next person's piece, it's not going to cut as deep, but it's going to take up a larger chunk around the outside, right? So you can visualize this bottom part as building like a champ pool. And you can visualize this top part as one tricking, OTP. So if we go to the next slide, we can kind of talk about the pros and cons of one tricking. So if we're talking about one tricking, it's these guys with these really narrow perspectives, right? You know, if we're gonna talk about examples, you have people like Beifeng, who plays Kiana at a really high level in Korea. We have people like Mango Fish. These guys might be Chinese, not Korean, but they play very high level on the Eastern servers. And they are like the best in the world at the thing that they do. But if you put them into like a competitive situation where, you know, they're playing Clash or they're playing professionally, they won't be able to be as effective as a professional player because as soon as this perspective is cut out for them and they're forced to play something else, whether it's because they got banned out or because their team composition needs something else to make it flow better, these players aren't going to have as much knowledge, right? They're going to, underperform. So the pros of one tricking is that if you're really good at the one thing, you don't have to play anything else in solo queue, right? If your champion gets banned, you can dodge, right? You get to hover your champion every single draft. So that means if you're going to one trick, it's the fastest way to gain LP because you cut your knowledge into the pie much quicker and much more efficiently playing one thing. All right, so it's the fastest way to gain LP, and it's the fastest way to gain a perspective. If you want to play a champion, if you kind of want to learn mid lane, what you do is you reduce the amount of variables. So you play one champion, and you cut your knowledge of the pie really, really deep. Now, the downside of that is obviously, what if your champion's banned? What if you're in a composition where your champion doesn't play well? Fortunately, in solo queue, you can remove these situations by just dodging. You can just dodge games that don't look good for your champion or your champion's banned out or whatever. But that's when we get into the pros of playing multiple champions. Multiple champions is going to give you more perspective. Right now, people that have multiple champions have pools, these are like pro players, right? So pretty much all pro players have to develop a pretty big pool compared to your normal high elo solo queue player or compared to your normal one trick, right? And the advantage of this is you can build really interesting drafts. You can build really interesting compositions. You can counter pick because you actually have the matchup knowledge to utilize the counter pick. You can, you don't have to dodge as much because you can play more things. And very generally, when you play competitive, it's going to give you a broader perspective so you understand more about the game. So you understand less about the champion, but more about the game, right? So that's kind of how you can think about this as well, is having a champion pool is going to be more about the game fundamentals, right? It's going to be more about just mid lane than it is about just playing Kiana, right? Less about the champion mastery. So now the question is like, what should you do, right? And I think the beginning is, you have to ask your goals. What are your goals in League of Legends? Do you plan on playing competitive, right? If you want to play Clash, if you want to play in leagues with your friends, if you want to play collegiate, whatever, then you have to start to develop a pool. right? Otherwise, you just get banned out, or you're going to severely underperform because you just don't have the perspective to play things that aren't your main thing. But if you just want to climb in solo queue and you just care about getting LP as fast as possible, then one tricking is your answer, right? So here's kind of my hypothesis on kind of the best balance between both of them. And this leaves your options open. It allows you to climb very quickly and add in as many champions to your pool as you want. So I think the first thing you should do is one trick or have a small champion pool, right? So have a small champion pool of 2 to 3 champions, and only play those 2 to 3 champions to your gold rank, right? Like, let's say, you know, you want to play Clash with your friends and they're all platinum players. So maybe you want to be platinum or maybe even diamond 4 so you can be the best player. So then you'll take 2 or 3 champions and you'll only play those 2 or 3 champions up until diamond 4. Now, once you hit diamond 4, then you can start playing other champions and adding in other champions. If you're playing them on your main account, you're going to slow down your climb a bunch. But if you're at your gold rank, that's okay, right? You can kind of sacrifice solo queue LP for learning champions. The reason you should climb to your gold rank first is because if you start trying to play champions in the beginning, you won't climb at all, right? So let's say you're at gold 4 and you want to go to diamond 4. Well, if you play 10 champions all the way there, it's going to take you a year. Where if you play 2 champions, it's going to take you 3 months. And then you can add in the new champions doing the other thing, right? And those are just random numbers, right? It'll take everybody a different amount of time. But then, as long as you want to keep climbing in solo queue, what you're going to do is you're going to have a main account with your main champion pool, right? That's your 2 to 3 champions. Maybe if you get a little bit better, you're playing 4 or 5, but really no more than 5. And you're going to have a main account and you're just going to play those limited champions, period. And then you're going to have additional accounts, which are maybe a division or 2 below where you're playing at, that you can practice the other accounts on, the other champions. So this is a super common thing you see in collegiate and in like amateur, where these collegiate players will have grandmaster and challenger accounts, where they play their main champions. They'll play their 2 to 3 to 4 main champions, and they'll only play these champions, and they'll climb really well, and they'll have good win rates. And then they'll have low grandmaster or masters or high diamond accounts, right? So we'll write master diamond 1, where they're playing these other champions so they can actually learn the matchup knowledge to a good enough level. But obviously, if they bring in these new champions to their challenger and grandmaster account, they wouldn't be able to maintain that high rank, which then causes everything to go down if you're not able to kind of be in challenger, at least with something, right? So this gives you kind of the best of both worlds. This is the number one thing I recommend to people who are trying to climb for the first time as well, because I'll get a client and they'll come to me and they'll play like 30 champions and they'll be like, oh, well, I have to learn these champions because I have to play this and this. It's like, that's fine if you want to play these champions, but if you want to climb, have a limited pool to climb on. Okay, so what that means is having an account, one account, your main climbing account, play 3 to 5 champions on it. And then on all of your other accounts, right, or in flex queue or in normals or in scrims, that's when you practice the other stuff. So my advice and kind of my hypothesis here is, regardless of what you're doing, climb with a limited pool. Climb with a limited pool, 5 at the most. I think 2 to 3 is the sweet spot. So have your main rank account, play 2 to 3 champions, and then have secondary accounts, whether it's, you know, a secondary account that has a little bit lower LP, or if you're playing in flex, or if you're playing in scrims, that's where you practice the other champions. Now, this is how you get the best of both worlds, where you have the rank account that's cutting in as deep to the pie as you possibly can to your peak rank. And then on your other accounts, you can focus on kind of spreading the pie knowledge out like this, right? So if you have one rank account, and this is kind of how I would visualize it on the pie, is you're going to play your limited pool, and your limited pool is going to cut really nice and deep and really sharp like this. This is going to be your 2 to 3 champions. Then on the other accounts, from this perspective, right? Because you're going to go hit platinum 4 or diamond 4. From this perspective, you'll start adding in the extra slices on your other accounts. And you'll start to kind of spread out your slice of the pie like this. And then as you climb, right? And on your main account, this can keep getting deeper. And then let's say now you're a Masters player from here. And now all of these pies, your knowledge just kind of keeps growing that way. So have one account to get you deeper, sharper into the pie. And that's your main rank account with 2 to 3 champions. And then have your other accounts be accounts where you kind of broaden your perspective, right? So that's my advice, guys. Make sure you have one account for ranking with a limited champion pool, and then all of your other accounts, you can play whatever you want, practice the new things, and broaden your perspective with. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Make sure you guys subscribe. Check out my Twitch channel if you guys want to ask me questions. And there are links for things like coaching and everything in the description. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Have a blessed night. Peace.